Hey there, and welcome to our biology unit in Year 10 Science. I personally am very excited about this unit, in part because, this is my favorite type of science, but also because the world of biology is a really interesting one indeed, which you'll find out very soon for yourselves. Now, before we delve into genetics and evolution, we have to start at the very beginning, which is a very good place to start, and that is at the level of cells. In fact, some people argue that pretty much everything in biology can be explained in terms of the cell. So things like human physiology, how viruses and bacteria cause disease, how plants work, how animals work. You can explain a lot of these things in terms of cellular processes. If you understand what a cell looks like, how it responds and interacts with other cells. In fact, a lot of the professions and careers that you guys might be interested in, so stuff in the health sciences, for example, medicine or physiology, or occupational therapy, pharmacy, things in like the veterinary sciences, botany, agriculture, research in cancer, disease, genes and DNA, stem cells. They all pretty much are based around a really good understanding of how cells work. It's so important, so pivotal in all of these professions. So this is a good place for us to start by looking at cells again. Now, if I've told you before, I'm sure you would have heard me say that I think a cell is just incredible. A cell is like an entire world. It's like a whole planet. A few hundred years ago, when the microscope was first invented and when people first saw cells, they thought they were just kind of these little blobs that didn't do very much. If you poke them, they would just kind of burst into like squishy stuff, like some jelly. We now know that could not be further from the truth. Cells are extraordinarily complex, which is fascinating to think that I am a bunch of several trillion cells right now talking to you, another bunch of several trillion cells. I personally think that the complexity of cells is proof that there is a God, that there must be some kind of, designer and someone who put things together. I like the analogy of like a factory that let's make it an iPad factory, just because we can. And you go in there and you see machines kind of like putting melting glass and making the screen and cutting the shape of the glass screen of the iPad, and other machines working together with different shapes and sizes of machines to make the metal backing of the iPad, and another group of machines working to produce the battery, the circuit components, installing the software, making sure that everything's working. And then you realize that all of these machines are working on their own with no humans operating them. And you're like, wow, these machines are automatic. They're just, self-working. They're self-instructed. And then someone tells you, not only that, these machines actually assembled themselves. And you go, okay, that's really weird. I can get that the machines are doing their job, without human intervention, although that's really quite amazing. But the machine assembled itself on its own? That is crazy. That is mind-boggling. And that is the cell. The cell is this entire flurry of activity with a whole bunch of little tiny biological machines all doing their thing. And they do it without any of your intervention or thought. All the trillions of cells in your body are doing their thing right now perfectly. All those little machines, in fact, assemble themselves in that cell, and they know when to stop doing their thing. They know when to disassemble themselves and get recycled into other things. It's fascinating, and that's what we're going to have a look at. So there's several types of cells in all living things. We're going to have a look at the two main ones, which are animal cells and plant cells. This is a diagram of a typical animal cell. It's a bit messy. There's quite a lot of stuff going on here, but I like this because it's a bit of a 3D picture that indicates to us that there's more going on. It's not just, a 2D kind of cross-section thing that we sometimes see in textbooks. Cells are really complex, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So we've got the nucleus of the cell, and the nucleus is where... The nucleus is, I guess, what people call the brain of the cell, where the DNA is stored, where it kind of instructions get read and get held. You've got other little components of the cell outside the nucleus. And we call all these things organelles, kind of like how our body has organs. In a cell, you've got organelles, like little organs. So you've got the Golgi vesicles, or the Golgi apparatus. You've got lysosomes, centrioles, the cytoplasm, that's kind of the liquidy jelly-like thing in which all of these organelles are suspended. Secretory vesicles, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, the rough endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, cytoskeleton, mitochondria, the membrane, ribosomes. There's a lot of stuff going on here, as you can see, which is great. And then you've got the plant cell. Now, the plant cell isn't really too different from the animal cell in that you've got a lot of similar components. So you've got the nucleus from before, you've got ribosomes, smooth, and the rough endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi, the cytoplasm, mitochondria, the membrane. A lot of stuff is similar. But there are a few things different. Three main differences between plant and animal cells. One is the presence of a really, really big vacuole. Animal cells have vacuoles too. These are things that kind of store water or like waste products. Except animals will have several of them, small ones, like kind of all around. Whereas plant cells typically have one vacuole, one central vacuole right in the middle that's really big. This provides some support and tension to the cell, which is what can provide a bit of its shape. Plant cells, because they're plants and can photosynthesize, also have a special organelle that lets them do so, and that's a chloroplast. The chloroplast is the organelle that permits photosynthesis because it contains chlorophyll. Finally, plant cells have a cell wall. Bacterial cells have this as well. So plant cells are animal cells, I suppose you could say, are quite unique because they don't have cell walls. But cell walls in plants are made of cellulose, and they are what give the plant cell its structure, its shape. So it kind of has this rigid shape. Animal cells are a bit of a like anything shape. Okay, cool. I would like to go through some of these organelles in a bit more detail. You have gone through this stuff in year 8 or 9 science, I believe, so this should be a bit of a review, a refresher. But yep, if you can actually copy out this table, I suggest that you do it once I've finished going through all of the organelles and their functions. There are 2 tables, by the way, just warning you. Okay, so let's begin with the cell membrane. So the cell membrane is what's on the outside of the cell. Both plant and animal cells have these, by the way. Plant cell just has a cell wall on top of it. And we used to think that the cell membrane was just like the skin of a balloon. It just kind of held things together, but didn't really do very much. It's just like a boundary. We now know that a cell membrane is far from just being this passive skin. It's a really, really active border that's like our border security in airports. It's like scanning stuff as it goes in. It's like, no, you stay there. Let me do another search on you before I let you into the cell. Or hey, you, why are you leaving the cell? I didn't say you could leave the cell. It's like there's a lot of stuff going on in the cell membrane. I did pretty much an entire subject in uni just on the cell membrane. Because it's just got so much there. So, yep. You've got the cytoplasm. So, like I said before, that's kind of the jelly-like liquid in which all the organelles are suspended. You've got so many organelles, by the way, in a cell that you don't really have a lot of cytoplasm. It's not like it's like mostly liquid and some odd organelles here and there. The cell is a really packed place to be. The nucleus of the cell is the control hub, or the brain. It's where DNA is stored and read. The mitochondria is kind of like the powerhouse of the cell, so it produces energy in the form of ATP, which is a molecule, adenosine triphosphate. Don't worry if you don't fully get what that is now. It's not too important. Just need to know what the mitochondria can do. The Golgi apparatus is where proteins get modified and stored. And finally, lysosomes. I guess they're a bit of like a waste disposal thing. There were large molecules in waste get broken down and stored, and then later the lysosome might move towards the membrane and then kind of eject all of the waste outside of the cell. Yeah, so you can pause the video now and copy this stuff down, or screenshot it if you like. Copying might be better, but yeah. Pause and copy this down. And on to the second part of the table, the endoplasmic reticulum. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum is where lipids are produced. So lipids are fats or fatty acids. The rough endoplasmic reticulum is called rough only because when you look at it through a microscope, it kind of looks like bumpy. And it's because you've got these little things on it called ribosomes along the endoplasmic reticulum. Ribosomes are places in the cell areas where proteins get produced by reading RNA. There's a lot of technical words going on here. All will be revealed in due time. We'll go through like RNA and proteins in the weeks to come. The cytoskeleton is the scaffolding that provides shape and protection, and sometimes even some movement within the cell. I guess you can think of them as like little. I guess much like how we have a skeleton that gives our body a bit of shape. It's not as like obvious and as thick and strong as our bony skeleton, but it does provide a little bit of structure for cells. So that's a cytoskeleton. Centrioles are anchors for these cytoskeletons. The centriole also plays a pretty crucial role in cell division. Again, we'll look at that in a few weeks. Then you have vacuoles. Like I said before, they are like storage little vesicles, and then you have the cell wall. The cell wall is that tough layer that only plant cells have that provide support and protection. And then the next thing that only that plant cells have, which is why I put an asterisk next to those two, chloroplasts. So that's what sets them apart from animal cells. Chloroplasts are the organelles that allow plants to photosynthesize, which is the process in which you produce oxygen and glucose. And there you have it. Those are the main organelles. There are plenty more organelles, but we're not going to concern ourselves with them in this unit. This is the main stuff that you need to know. So hopefully what you got out of this were the main parts of a cell. You should be able to label main parts of a cell. You should be able to describe the main differences between plant and animal cells, and tell me the main functions of these organelles that are listed here. Alright, and that is it for the first video. We've got exciting times ahead of us with DNA and genes, so lots to look forward to. As always, if you've got any questions, please write them down so that you can ask them to me in class, or comment in the section below. I think some of you kind of lost the habit of doing so, so please make sure that you do that. And of course the internet, the World Wide Web, Wikipedia is great with getting more information. Want to find out a bit more about centrioles, look up Wikipedia, there's heaps of stuff there. Okay, and that is it from me in this first video. Let's see you in the next one.